plans, I have you come up here, talk a little about where you are through each step. That we, when we get to the end, we can have a full presentation by each group. Um, Anyone do the Dunkin' Donuts assignment for this week? Or read? Okay, so let's start there. Dunkin' Donuts. For those of you who looked at the video or read some information on it, what did you learn about their strategy? What was their issue to begin with? What was Dunkin' Donuts' issue? Anyone remember? Dunkin' Donuts had a problem. What was the problem?
I haven't watched the video.
Okay. Anyone remember any of it? Okay. All right, Dunkin' Donuts had a problem. Taste preferences were changing, right? Things change, things evolve. We can't sell the same stuff forever, right? New products come out, new things to compete with current products. People age, people evolve, people's lifestyle changes. So Dunkin' had an issue. They had a bunch of old stores, the Dunkin' Donuts stores. They had a certain aesthetic on the inside that was kind of aging, kind of looked dilapidated. Countertops looked very old. The way that the stores were set up didn't seem to be highly efficient in any way. Wasn't really a total open concept, which some of their competitors had. It didn't seem to be as friendly, right, to customers. So things were changing. So Dunkin' Donuts said that, wait, hey, you know, we have to come up with a new concept, total concept in the consumer's mind of what Dunkin' Donuts is about. What do you think, from just your observation, I'm sure that all of you shopped at Dunkin' Donuts, what has changed? What has changed in recent years from Dunkin' Donuts? What have you observed?
I feel like I don't really go there enough to really notice the difference. I feel like it kind of feels the same.
You haven't seen anything different. Store, product offerings.
There's a lot of Dunkin' Donuts everywhere now. That's one thing I do notice.
Okay, so you're saying more.
Yeah, I feel like they're everywhere. It's on every little street corner.
So let's say, okay, there's a change. More stores. Yes.
They have they sell more than just coffee now, so they have like refreshers and like the Spark energy drinks. And they also have like seasonal drinks too, so like right now during the fall, they have like the pumpkin donuts and the coffee.
All right, so you say, hey, I noticed that Dunkin' Donuts has a lot more refreshers, or refreshers in general. Yeah, I also noticed that Dunkin' Donuts have these Spark energy drinks, right? Specifically to give people a boost. Yeah, I also noticed that Dunkin' Donuts have a lot more seasonal options, right? Fall, winter, spring, holiday stuff, things like that. What else have you noticed? Anything branding wise? Dunkin' Donuts is not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. What is it?
It's just Dunkin'.
Just Dunkin'. Where are the donuts now? Who came up with that idea? What was the point? How would they get to know that they need to drop an entire donuts from the actual name? It's just Dunkin' now. What do you think is the reason behind it, or reasons behind that? Rebranding.
Because they have more than just donuts now. A lot more than just donuts.
Yeah, so you say, hey, there's an emphasis no longer on donuts. The emphasis is on drinks, right? But if you add the donuts, then in the consumer's mind, you're thinking donuts. And if competitors are out there and they have way more drinks available, then you're not going to Dunkin' Donuts. because in your mind, the very word donut stick, and you're focusing on the food portion of it, whereas your competitors are not, right? Your competitors leave it a little bit, bless you, a little bit more obscure, abstract in the name, because we say everything matters. The color, the font, the name, the concept in the consumer's mind, right? This is just human behavior. So they drop donuts so they can have a more open sort of strategy towards the future, right? And it's not focused heavily just on donuts, right? So in the mind, they're like, hey, you know, people still remember Dunkin', and people begin to shorten the name to just Dunkin' themselves, right? So how would they get this type of information? How would Dunkin' Donuts have known to use information, and how do they get this information for consumers to go, oh, it's time to make these changes? What are some ways?
I know Dunkin', like, if you had, when they give you the receipt, it usually has like a survey, and they usually give you like a free donut if you complete the survey, so you do there.
All right, Dunkin' Donuts gets post-purchase feedback, right? And they're gonna give you some sort of reward or benefit for doing so. All right, what other ways can you think of that companies use to get information?
Focus groups.
Yes, right? So focus groups. So as we're talking about marketing and advertising, we come to this chapter. Information. You're selling a product, great. Here's what you're offering, wonderful. How come you're not improving in sales? Many reasons. People's taste preferences have changed. Your branding is not good enough. You don't advertise as well. You are not competing good enough, right? You say, how do I gather this information so that I'm able to make changes necessary to be successful, right? So here we come to the part, information, right? Which is extremely important. Because we say maybe who has the best information is going to be the most successful. We need to know, what kind of information you think we need to know about our consumers in order to make effective changes? Just off the bat, what do you think of? Right? Just think demographic data, right? We need to know how old you are, so we know your age, so we can segment you into groups. We need to know possibly how much money you make, what's your level of education, right? We need to know how often you shop here. How many times have you been in the store? How many products have you bought in the store? What products do you buy when you come to shop here? Right? And we said we compile all that information and we come to some sort of conclusions about your behavior, what you like and what you dislike. And that's just a part of primarily what you like, right? Because we say there's different type of consumers, users. There are people who are actively buying. There's people who stop buying. They're like, whoa, we have information on the people who stop buying. How can we get information from them to tell us why you stopped coming here? Why don't you buy anymore? Why don't you buy our stuff anymore? How can we get you that? How could we increase the buying behavior of those who do buy here? Right? We see patterns of maybe people who buy here, but they buy here randomly or infrequently. Why? Right? How can we use information as a tool to make us more successful, to make changes in our operations, in our advertising, in our marketing, right? So we need research, right? And this whole chapter is talking about research. So for your businesses that you're gonna be working on, pizza spot / Mexican food spot, what's the name again? Sergio's and Johnny's, which are good names, because we say in marketing, people love personalization. They love names, right? They like banks with names. J.P. Morgan Chase, things Charles Schwab, right? They like clothing stores or fashion names, right? more so than just some random made up name, right? We're like Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, Zara's a name, even those. So that's good. But here, for your ad campaigns, think of a few things for Johnny's, right? Research those. What information do you need from these organizations, from the market itself that they are in, to help them, to improve, to make them more efficient, right? And then we say, hey, there's people that stop shopping at Johnny's and Sergio's. Why they stop? We need that information. Who shops at Johnny's? And how do we bracket that information, right? Is it mostly older people, middle, Gen Zers, something of the sort, right? We can maybe, what's their income levels, what's their education levels? What other information could we get? And that's just really quantitative information. Qualitative information is like really in depth. What do you like about us? Tell me in words, right? What do you not like about us? What could we do better here, right? And that would be qualitative. So we'll get into that. Okay, so in this chapter we're learning purposes of integrated marketing channels research, basic steps in research process, qualitative, quantitative. Anyone ever took the stats or research course? Yes. Okay. Differences between pre-testing and post-testing of campaign messages, important considerations in effective IMC research. So what is marketing research? So we need to distinguish maybe two things. There's market research and then there's marketing research. Market research is essentially looking at markets, right? How big a market is, what's the proportion, share proportion that one owns, how do you further penetrate the market of some sort. Marketing research is sort of the entire branch, right? It's sort of the umbrella, where you're looking to see products, offerings, how to get new customers, customer behavior, customers' opinion, right? Where should you open up a retail store? What's the best location for it, right? Then all the demographic data. So we say marketing research is way more insightful than market research because it looks into many more items, right? So marketing research helps identify consumer needs and market segments, right? Information, this information is critical in order for us to make decisions, right? We gotta make really good informed decisions with really good information. So provides information for developing new products, marketing strategies. Who here has ever participated in a focus group? Could you tell us how was it? How was the experience?
It was a while ago, but it was unique to me. Like they brought us all in. They showed us like a commercial. It was for Gatorade, and they basically asked each of our personal opinions and then what they would change or stuff like that. And it was cool because they just seen that commercial a few weeks later come out. So
All right, so yeah, so participated possibly in like a pre-testing thing, right? In which case you're like, hey, we're coming out with a new ad, a new commercial, but before we release it, we need to know how people really feel about it. Because we may go back and have to tweak some things, or we may cut that. We may cut that ad. Be like, hey, we've researched enough people to be like, that's not gonna work well with them. Which means that literally we're gonna spend a bunch of money on nothing, right? So gathering that information from you, how was the setup? How many people? What was the environment like?
this was like a round table. It was more relaxed. I think there was like maybe 8 to 10 of us, and they made sure like they want to make sure everyone felt like real like relaxed and calm and wanted their true opinion about it. And, yeah.
Okay, so you say, hey, we're a company, Gatorade, and we're trying to get some really good information about possibly releasing this ad. We want to get the opinions on people who buy Gatorade, right, who purchase Gatorade, and we want to get some qualitative information from them, like what did you like about the commercial, right? What did you dislike? What did you think the meaning of it? What's the themes? What's the patterns? All of that, right? So in the focus group, you set people up in the best way possible. right? You could do a square table, rectangular, but most effective is round, because you want everybody looking at each other, facing one another, so they can have good conversations with each other, right? You wanna personalize individuals, give them a name tag. Name tags makes people feel important. When people feel important, they got more stuff to say, more to talk about, right? You could turn introverts into slightly extroverts, and then give them something to eat or drink. Was there anything available for you to eat or drink?
This was nice and nice.
Yeah, why is that important? Setting up this type of research, focus group. Why give someone something to eat or drink? Right, we want people to have good blood sugar levels, right, so they're not groggy. You show up somewhere and super early and you haven't eaten, you don't even wanna think, right? Your mind is not about thinking, right? Your mind is about hunger, and that's gonna be the focus of your thinking, right? So you wanna get people settled, give them comfortable, make them individualized, personalized, give them a type of space where they'll be able to communicate effectively to one another, and you wanna ask questions that matter, right? Specific questions that matter. All right, so it enables managers to assess effectiveness of promotional activities, right? So we can use information to see, well, how well was our promotion? Use to gain 3 R's of marketing: recruit, retain, and regain. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, so what is this research that we're talking about, right? For those of you who's going to actually work in marketing or advertising, who plans on, and what do you would like to do?
Like social media.
Okay. What kind of research you think you could do in social media marketing, or would need to do in order to do?
Other companies and what they're doing would be good for your research, or like competitive brands and like what their social media strategies are.
So think of what kind of information can you get from social media, period.
Like followers.
There you go, right? So you're like, hey, information is really good. We can kind of gauge on the success of anybody on social media or a company or brand simply by likes and followers, right? I think that's a pretty good measurement to see how successful someone is doing, just in terms of awareness, right? We say, how aware is a brand? Look at the followers, look at the likes. TikTok has, what is it? You got followers, include following, and the third part is it likes? Like at the top right? Something like that, right? So kind of the same information. Right, so that'd be critical information to know. So we want to know how consumers view products. How do you view? Qualitative information. How do you view this product? Right? Because we say, what is the image being given off by this product? Like, hey, I love this product. Wonderful. What do you like about the product? Well, I love that it really does this, it's super effective. I like the price, I don't like the price. It works well, but only sometimes. It's good for these things, not good really for these things. It's good at certain points of the year, but now I want it all the time. I don't need it all the time, right? Important information, because we said, well, okay, we need to make changes for this particular person, this type of person. Like, what changes? Maybe we need to come up with a secondary product. Maybe we need to expand our product line. Maybe where there's a niche of people that we are really missing out. Right? So we want to know how consumers view products with our research. It reviews how consumers view the competition, right? We can use information to see how we compete in a lot of ways, such as what? What kind of information could we have to show how consumers view the competition versus us? Just information, just raw information. could say market share, right? You're like, oh man, we sell the same stuff, they got a bigger market share. We sell the same stuff, they sold more than us last year, right? We could look up that information, how much they sold, how much we sold. But revenue, like, yeah, you know what, they sold more than us, we made more, why? We're more expensive, right? So we got more revenue. All sorts of ways that we could look at our competitors and be like, hey, well, how come they go there and don't come to us, right? What's up with that? Right? Shows what brand or company image would be most credible. Dunkin' Donuts went to Dunkin'. And you're like, so what? Like, it's probably a few $1 billion of rebranding, more. Because now you're saying we gotta rebrand the stores. Now the stores gotta look a little bit modern and cost money. Take off the Dunkin' Donuts, put up a Dunkin' with a little apostrophe, that costs money. Ooh, interesting, they got those little wooden things now, that cost money, like a Starbucks, right? Change the whole thing, oh, it's open, come up here, it's nice and open, and the people right there making the food and bringing it. It looks like some competitors that Dunkin' Donuts, right? They switched it up, and like, hey, this is a multi-billion-dollar decision that we're making, right? It better yield the results, or somebody's in trouble, right? Or a lot of people in trouble, a lot of people getting fired. You're like, we lost money, can't afford to pay 10,000, 30,000 people layoffs or something, right? Failed. Why did it fail? Horrible marketing campaign, horrible ad campaigns, horrible rebranding. The rebranding was a complete failure. Right, so with our organizations, think of that too. The branding, is Sergio's have the best branding? Because it's in the concept of consumers. You're like, if people don't even think about it that much, that's a problem. Right? So maybe you go and you say, hey, let me make a questionnaire and I'll pass out to the high schoolers. Maybe I ask the high schoolers for an email address, and I'll send them a questionnaire to fill out. What do you like about Sergio? What do you don't like? What do you think of their prices? What would you change? What do you wish they had? Right? Same goes for Johnny's. Right? They say you could develop some tools to kind of see company image and branding. In your mind, what does Johnny's represent? In your mind, what do Sergio's represent? Somebody big, I don't know, cheap pizza. Cheap, decent pizza. And you're like, Sergio's, are you okay with that? Because when I think of Pequod's pizza, I'm like, no, it ain't decent, it's awesome. Right? How come Sergio's can't be awesome? Now for Johnny's, might be like, hey, Johnny's is awesome, right? Like, awesome, the best Italian beef. I would probably say the best Italian beef in the city. You're like, okay, great. Any butts? I mean, I wish I could sit in, right? I wish I could sit in a place. Maybe it's winter time and it's 12 below zero. And somebody's on the bus, they don't have a car. What are they gonna sit down? They're not. And stand up, eat it real quick, and that might be the most comfortable thing for somebody. Like, oh man, I wish Johnny's had a spot. So that might be a thing, might be a space. By God, a space is, wish it was a different space, right? I need to change the space. They got money to change the space, right? Maybe that's what people want. So if you kind of reach out to these businesses for real, I would maybe ask the owners, like, hey, can we give out some surveys to the customer? Something really simple, quick. We say humans don't like, unless you're giving them some money, they're not doing anything for free. Make it something 5 questions, right? They're probably not giving nobody any money. So, he was like, hey, I need information about Johnny's and Sergio's in order to make them more money, right? You really want to make them have more revenue. And those are some things about company image and brand. Show what messages offer the greatest appeal, right? Whatever kind of messages, it could even be menu, because we're talking about retail or food, restaurant. It could be menu, what is the message of the menu? It could be the space, does the space give off a message? I know that Dunkin' space is different than Starbucks space, it gives off a message, right? And that message could be several things. But show what messages offer the greatest appeal to the customers. That's what we need to find out with information. All right, and then we have 4 categories of applying research. Strategy research, all right? We're gonna think of, hey, how can we find the best sort of strategy for increasing sales in Q4 of 2024, all right? Let's get some information there too. Creative concept research, all right? So you're like, hey, I have a new concept. And the new concept would be rebranding, a new product, a new offering, a new service. I have a concept. Like, sounds great. Tell me about it. All right, this is it. What do consumers think about this concept? You need to find it out, right? Because it can't just be my idea, and I think it's awesome. I also need feedback from people who literally buy this product or have this service, right? I have to get some sort of information from them. And then message pre-testing, as we heard, was a commercial coming out, right? Like, hey, we spent X amount of money on a commercial, but before we pay all these channels and mediums to spread it to the world, which will cost us hundreds of millions of dollars, let's go have focus groups to see how people really feel about it. In case we need to go back and tweak the people. Somebody might notice something, be, man, that's kind of offensive in today's environment, right? They know something in the commercial, but I don't think the message, that was off base. Like, really? Well, it shows that the majority of the people that we collected information from feel that's inappropriate, offensive, just won't work in today's environment. So let's go back to the drawing board before we release a giant ad to the world, and we get that from pre-testing, right? Post-testing is how effective was the campaign, right? How effective was the ad? How effective is the rebranding? How effective are the new products, the new concept, right? How effective? And we could do that by offering more surveys, questionnaires, email marketing, things of that nature. All right, so we say with the concept, marketers need to know how consumers perceive their brands to create a unique concept. Target audience selection. Marketers use the dominance concept, right? And we say, hey, with target markets, we're thinking of people who will buy the most, or who will buy most frequently, who has actually given us the most business, right? We want to focus on those people. They dominate here with their business, right? Media selection, use syndicated research services such as AC Nielsen. Anyone familiar with Nielsen? Right, Nielsen does TV ratings, right? See how well TV shows are doing, the ratings when they come out, radio ratings, right? We come to use a lot of rating systems, right? You use a lot of data and information taken from all across the U.S. and I believe even internationally. And we can use them for research. So we say, hey, they already have mechanisms set up for us to get good data, and they're kind of a full service thing, so they can take care of everything that we need, right? Or you say, hey, the opposite. We're gonna go to the drawing board, draft up our own questionnaires, our own surveys, we're gonna measure everything ourselves, right? We're gonna come to our own conclusions. Like, that's pricey, that's lengthy, a lot of work, right? There are services out there that we can use who've been doing it for 100 years that will be more cheaper, I would say, right? More efficient. And then message element selection. Companies study consumers' likes and dislikes to create the most promising message. Because here we're saying, hey, everything is a message, right? Everything is a message. Everything is a communication. Yeah, you bought the shoe, but effectively what did shoe communicate to you to make you buy it, right? That's what we need to know, because it's almost like magical information in some sense, because it's very deep subconscious motivations from people based on something, right? We need to kind of tune into that, because if we don't, our competitors will. Inclusive research, right? If the sample is unlike the population, it is meant to represent the data a company receives will not be accurate. Here they talk about the advocacy group. Disability believes that one reason people with disabilities are underrepresented in ads is because they are overlooked in research, right? They're like, well, that's actually, someone could take that information and say, well, if they're overlooked in research, it means no one's focusing on that particular demographic, those who have disabilities, right? And that's probably maybe a target audience we should focus on. Right? I guess our competitors are not focusing on them. But sample size. What is a sample size? What is a sample?
An ad.
Not necessarily. Like if you're doing research, what is a sample in research?
A small collection of data.
Yeah, small collection of data. You're like, hey, we have 2 million customers. We can't use a survey or a focus group for 2 million customers. That's not gonna happen. It's impossible. It's impossible. Why? It costs too much money. And here we're saying we're being smart, right? We're trying to be the smartest way of going about everything. So we say what we do is we could take a small snippet of particular groups of individuals and assemble them in some way to either shoot surveys to them, have them fill things out, come do a focus group, do an individual interview one by one, but just a small collection of people. But that small collection represents the entire sort of collection of people, right? So if you think even opinion polls for voting, well, who we're gonna vote for, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, right? Well, let's go take a sample size. What's the sample size? Right? A good roundabout of people of multiple ethnic groups, socioeconomic status, age groups, education, a group sample of what the United States looks like, right? Without being too biased, right? Because we come up with bias, then the information is inaccurate. The information is inaccurate, it's pointless. What's the point of having bad information? We want to have good information. So a sample size is taking a small snippet, right? Small snippet, but it has to represent the larger population. Right? And so we want to be inclusive. Hey, you know, if maybe the issue would be, we're talking about groups, those who are disabled, maybe there are people who are disabled that buy a lot from us, but we're like, hey, how do we get information from them? And it's kind of harder, trickier to get information. But it might be all types of disabilities, right? They may need a caretaker to fill out the information for them, right? So we gotta get kind of more creative, even with groups that are kind of harder to reach or harder to get information from, if they really give us money. If they are our consumers, we have to focus on them. Because if not, we will lose them, right? We will lose them as consumers. All right, so with pre-testing and post-testing. Testing helps marketers make more important decisions such as merchandise, right? Markets, right? Motives, right? What is the motive to buy? Messages, right? We say messages that work, messages that are unclear to people, messages that are ineffective. And then overall media, right? We say, hey, how was it presented to you? Billboard, YouTube, social media, right? The media, what was the channel being used or the method? Was it a commercial? Was it a print ad? Things of that nature. And then media costs are rising rapidly, right? So we have to, as, let's say, managers in marketing or ad managers, consider how expensive media classes are now, subclasses, we'll see this on the next slide, the vehicles, the units in media, right? It's easy to test media campaigns, so here's an exhibit on media categories. So for media classes, we say, hey, we got print, we have electronic, we got digital interactive, we got direct mail, we got out of home. So even for your organizations, right, Johnny's and Sergio's, maybe we could think of, hey, Johnny's, why don't you have at the entrance or the exit some print media? Maybe it's something with a barcode where people can scan with their phone quickly, take a quick survey, get free fries next time. Right, okay, that could work. Electronic. Hey, Johnny's wants you now to, at the point of service, right, the point of checkout, the POS, is like, hey, we wanna gather your email address to an phone bill. Right, so it could be a rewards member. Like, okay, what's the rewards for? We'll give you some benefit. We want the rewards to send you a bunch of stuff and monitor your behavior. Right, so you say, hey, Johnny, how many people of this group comes in to purchase Italian beef, Italian sausage? And they say, I got no clue. How come? Because we just take their money and they go. Like, you don't like information? Like, no. Then how do you make decisions here at this business for the future, for changes and trends? You know, like, we don't necessarily do. That's why we only got one store, or two, somebody said two. Like, we don't. Anybody, well, what kind of business are you running? We're running a business to have just enough, right? Well, we like, guess what? Somebody's gonna come, make an offer, scoop up this business, because they don't wanna expand and not just have just enough. They can come buy Johnny's out, right? The same goes for Sergio. Somebody's like, hey, you know what, buy Sergio's out, because the business is already established, and I'm gonna kick out the pizza out the joint. Because people are confused about having pizza and Mexican food at the same spot, right? But I don't think that works. We did some surveys, and we found out people want something different. Okay, then we got media subclasses, right? Subclasses would be print, newspaper, magazine, right? Radio, television, internet, social media, smartphone for digital interactive, direct mail, catalog, brochure, out of home, outdoor transit. For media vehicles, right? The vehicles, what are the vehicles we're using? The New York Times and Elle for magazines, for print magazines. KNXAM or Wheel of Fortune for electronic. Apple apps, websites, email, Facebook for digital interactive. Direct mail, Lands End, billboards, bus stations, subway station, etc. Right? Think of the university again. All right, so I don't really see the advertising for this university as I do for others, right? For other Chicago-based schools, you know? So if you're on the train and you look up, you're like, oh, like Dominican, Loyola got this new program for nursing. Oh, Northwestern got a business school is for mine. They were starting like, well, what's going on here? How could they improve? Because think about it. Effective marketing, effective results. You would say maybe every class would be completely filled. In an ideal situation, that's a lot of money. But even if we stay in this class, we're like, one to few. Right? So for each department at the university, whether it be business, school of business, each school, I would say, or college of blah, 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 psychology, nursing, yada, yada, yada. They are having these issues. and they're thinking about how do we retain students, some are leaving after the second year, third year. How do we get new students? Nobody knows about us unless they're Lutheran or some other reason they live in the area. How do we make more effective results, right? And so one simple way could be, hey, they're not doing enough of this. There's not enough social media stuff, smartphone, maybe stuff to send you via text. We need to add more billboards, bus stations, subway stations, right? We need to be out there. And then we got media units, right? Units, half page, full page. What are you paying for? This all costs money. We'll pay for a full page print, a full page in the New York Times, or a half page, right? Won't cost as much. We don't need a full page to get effective communication done. Electronic, you say, oh, a 30-second spot commercial, right? Just enough. Some will say maybe a shorter version, right? Save money, but be just as effective. Digital interactive, banners, digital video, app games, right? Appearances, right? Interesting, this, like those who play games on iPhone or whatever, you do see those advertisements, right? Aren't you broken up, like your experience is broken up by these ads, right? And maybe if you purchase like the full thing, they'll eliminate them or something, right? So there's exposure there too. Direct mail, 16 pages of a media unit or letter size, right? That might be a different format. Poster panels or inside cards for out-of-home media categories, right? So we have all these choices to make. All these choices to make in terms of media, of how we're gonna go about getting good information or giving out information about us. Oh, okay, so here, I want to actually give you a few minutes to think about for your companies, what kind of research or information could you use to substantially generate more revenue, right? About these organizations you're going to be working for. So I'll give you a couple minutes to talk together and think about that. Johnny's and Sergio's, what kind of research and information can you use? More importantly, what questions? So think of some questions. Think of some questions that you would ask both the business, right? The people who work there or the owner, whichever, and the customers too. What kind of questions would you be asking in order to achieve some sort of effectiveness? I'll give you a few minutes to talk amongst each other about that. Sergio's Taqueria and Pizza.
What it expands, what it don't use, what everybody has to do for each, so well,
So there's Bryn Mawr and Sacramento.
It's up north, but like Foster.
Yeah. Bryn Mawr and Sacramento. Okay. It's up near Northeastern University. Yeah. And by Northside College Prep.
That's what I wanted.
Gotcha.
So
does Johnny's Beef have a website? You know,
No, they don't.
you know?
Yeah.
This is a different Johnny's thing here.
Yeah, he's about as old school as it gets.
I think I'm making an Italian beef for lunch. Now, this also, this is on wttw.com. This is actually pretty good information. It's showing you the whole process. All right, it's talking about even here. Let's see. 9:19 a.m. This gentleman Felix warms the roaster while 21-year-old Marco prepares to trim the fat off the beef before they toss it into the roaster to cook. Right, so we kind of see process here, how quickly the process is. Yeah, so maybe check out this website too. Oh yeah, their Italian ice is really good. Yeah, this is probably information you can use for your presentation too. Like these images right there. So Sergio's offers delivery and pickup.
You can see that there's a bulk of it.
9 to 10.
Oh, yeah, it is, it's a little old school, yeah. It's he's stuck at the eighties.
Now, who is Sergio's competitor that you know in that area or anywhere close by?
I mean, there's a decent amount of restaurants that are, there's like a grill and there's like some Asian, it's called Two Asian Brothers, and then there's like others that are like walking distance.
Okay. But is there anybody specific? Is there another business that's doing exactly what Sergio does, with Mexican and pizza? Tacos pizza?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, it's something to look into, right? But also think of even other competitors. You're like, hey, you know, Sergio's at 7-Eleven is at Bryn Mawr and such and such.
I don't get it, so I don't know for sure.
Are they taking away from our pizza?
Yeah.
Chair, I think to consider like that. I got like other retail spaces that are taking away from pizza or tacos with their offerings.
Sorry, I can hear it.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Sergio's, what are some of the questions?
Well, we said one of the questions we could ask him was like if he had any regulars, and if he does, like if we can maybe talk to the regulars and see what they like about Sergio's that keeps like making them wanna come back to Sergio's. We also thought about, asking where he gets like most of his orders from, or like where he's most busy, if that's either like delivery or like dining in.
Okay. Delivery versus dining in, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. So you're like, hey, focus on the people that come here all the time. They're called our regulars, right? They give us most of our revenue comes from them. So let's start asking them. You're like, hey, you can start out simple. The people who work there at Sergio's, you're like, hey, ask our regulars, just ask them verbally. What do you like what do you like about this place? Tell me what you like, right? Somebody keep a notepad. It's information, doesn't matter. Like, hey, how costly was that? Sergio may establish like, hey, you know, we don't have a big budget for all that surveys and focus group stuff, so I'm gonna have my employees ask the people that they frequently see what they like about it. We'll write it down. After an 8-hour shift, or just say a full day, you're like, we could see some themes, right? Now we could break up what everybody said into 5 particular themes that they like, right? And from there, then we could pinpoint just with that basic handwritten information on like, in the minds of our customers, these 3 things are the key ingredients to the success of Sergio's. Right, so you can filter that information to see what is the real concept that people like about Sergio's. Right? Very simple. And it might be effective, right? We can use the information to make some changes. So you say, what kind of information is, hey, what do you like? What type of information is that? We say it's quantitative and qualitative. Yeah, you like qualitative, right? Qualitative is things you can't really measure, you know? Maybe you can measure them later after you compile all this. You can put them in things and bracket and come out with some concepts. You can measure that. But you say on the onset, you're really gauging things that are difficult to measure, right? What do you like? How do you, maybe you assign some sort of measurement to it later, right? So qualitative. Qualitative is usually cheaper, quicker, right, than quantitative. Right? But quantitative, you may need all sorts of programs to get the information, deduce the information, statistical analysis, things like that. Okay, Johnny's, what are you thinking?
I guess some things like, to ask for them would be like, would they be open to accepting different forms of payment?
All right. Why don't you accept other payments? Hey, what do you think some of the reasons could be for that? Just off the top of your head.
I think the easiest one is you would not report all of it.
Yeah, you're like, all right, reporting might be an issue. What could be another reason? Like, hey,
Technology.
yeah, you're like, oh man, we have to invest in technology, right? And you're like, the owners are like, ah, that's expensive, I don't wanna do all that. Well, it could be another reason.
They believe it's like quicker, more efficient.
With cash?
Yeah.
Alright. Alright, quicker, and another reason might just be like, hey, you know what? Legitimate reason might be like, hey, there's a transaction fee for each tap, every credit card, right? And you're like, no, maybe they tried that in the past, I don't know. But maybe they just established like, hey, those fees rack up, right? Whatever system we're using, we just don't find that it's gonna work here, right? Maybe it's part of the experience, right? So we say in the concept of people's minds about Johnny, what makes part of what makes Johnny's is maybe being one of the few or last cash-only spot. And you're like, well, that's weird, do people like that? I don't know, maybe they do. Maybe if Johnny's modernized, it's not Johnny's anymore, it's changed, something else. Maybe the old school people who set aside money just for Johnny stop coming there. They say, well, I don't like this, I like the old way, right? And so you have to establish, well, if it's the old school people that come in and give you most of their money, you better keep them happy first. Forget all the new cool people that wanna use Apple Pay, right? Like, well, I don't know, maybe that's some sort of research that, information that you could gather, right? So I would say that's a big one, right? A big one is trying to find out, gathering information on how much more successful would Johnny be if they accepted Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, right? Android Pay, all of these things, and credit cards and every sort of non-cash means. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, I got my phone here. Okay, so the process, so we'll end up today's class talking about process, right? These will go into your plans. Right, so important to know the process of marketing research. I used to do marketing research a long time ago, with one of the first jobs I had out of college. I worked for the Blackstone Group. And one of my roles at one time was to gather information about where should the next Starbucks go. It was like a location analysis, right? Figuring out what neighborhoods should Starbucks open a retail spot in, exactly where, right? Corner lot of the parking lot, right? Trying to figure out exactly what was the most effective way to expose Starbucks to a neighborhood based on several factors, right? And we say a lot of the factors were tied into real estate trends, right? The buying, purchasing, and selling of real estate in a particular neighborhood. What was the actual annual income of people there, families, individuals, what's the demographic makeup? But usually it related to neighborhoods that were already pre-established, well-established. Lincoln Park, Gold Coast, Lakeview, Wicker Park, Bucktown, Downtown, Loop, right? It already kind of established itself there, but then they started to say like Humboldt Park began to gentrify, change. More money is coming to this neighborhood, right? We're going to have the Bucktowns, Logan Squares, Edgewater, all these neighborhoods, right? So try to figure out exactly where's the location to maximize exposure, what was most easy to get traffic-wise, what hit the most foot traffic in a particular neighborhood, what streets, pathways. So it's interesting stuff. And I felt good because I would see these Starbucks pop up, right? Based on the research, right? And come up with this plan that you will present to Starbucks or McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or Subway or Chipotle or something of the sort, right? So you say it's stuff that have real effective results that yield them billions of dollars. All right, so what's the research process? First, you have a situation analysis or problem definition. What is the problem? So for your organizations, define the problem or define the situation. What is the situation at Sergio's? What's the problem at Sergio's? What's the situation at Johnny's? Or what is the problem at Johnny's? Right? How could Johnny achieve more money, more customers? How could it adapt? How could it innovate? How could it be more competitive? And then we have more informal or exploratory research, right? Where we're just kind of just asking questions just to find out stuff. We may not necessarily change anything, but we want to have the information for information's sake. For maybe down the line. So we can say, hey, we use secondary or primary data. Here we're talking internal, secondary, external, secondary. Secondary information is information that's already out there, right? So you're thinking of things that are on websites, company, if it's listed on the stock exchange, you could pull up all their sales information, revenue, number of customers, yada, yada, yada. Government information, pull up the US Census Bureau to look up neighborhoods and, the demographics there. You would source that information from secondary sources, right? Primary information is like, hey, I created a survey and I'm sending it out, right? You're actually doing the work yourself primarily, right? You're hosting the focus group. You're getting original information, not information that already pre-existed, right? So think of the difference between primary and secondary information. But for you, maybe say, I don't know, maybe there is some secondary data out there, right? Maybe there's information that the Chamber of Commerce has or something for Elmwood Park or for where Sergio's is located. Construction of research objectives, right? It's like, what's the objective of whatever kind of problem or situation you have? What are you trying to achieve with this information? What's the goal? Right, and then we say primary research could be quantitative or qualitative. Remember we said the difference is that qualitative is purely used for statistical purposes, right? Mathematical purposes, numbers, right? Quantitative is more so things, questions about how people feel, emotions, right? Abstract things that really can't be gathered primarily out of just quantitative. And then you want to interpret and report the findings, right? So this is your sort of process. Reporting the findings at the end and interpreting what those findings are based on the quantitative aspect or the qualitative aspect. What time is it?
44.
Okay. All right, we will end off here today. We'll continue on with talking about research on Thursday. Now, where are we with our first part of our project?
What exactly is the first part?
All right, we'll talk about it on Thursday, but I'll bring the syllabus up because maybe we can have you present some initial sort of questions or things you're gonna be looking for specifically with your companies on next Tuesday. So on Thursday, we can talk more about it. I'll pull up the syllabus. All right, everyone.